Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a truly fascinating collection of stories from the business world.
Yeah, and we're definitely leaving the dry economics textbooks behind.
Absolutely. We're talking about the unpredictable, the often dramatic human element behind the headlines.
Mm-hmm. Surprising facts, timeless lessons, all wrapped up in these major corporate sagas.
Our mission today is to dive into business adventures. It's this amazing collection of detailed accounts.
Right, tales spanning everything from Wall Street crashes, groundbreaking innovation,
Regulatory battles, individual fortunes.
even the subtle ways we communicate. And we're going to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight for you.
Think of this as your shortcut, maybe. Your way to get informed about the forces shaping our markets, our lives.
And hopefully have a little fun along the way.
We'll definitely try. We'll explore market plunges, those wild gambles behind revolutionary products,
The whole struggle for fairness in finance, which is always evolving.
and the personal journeys, too, the
Yeah.
people navigating these high-stakes environments.
So get ready for a journey that's, well, anything but business as usual.
Okay, let's kick things off with something foundational, a kind of timeless truth about markets.
Ah, you mean JP Morgan.
Exactly, J.P. Morgan the Elder. You know the story, right? Some naive acquaintance asks him what the stock market's going to do.
And his classic reply, it will fluctuate.
It's perfect, isn't it? So simple, but it nails the nature of stock exchanges. They give us that free flow of capital.
But they're also, as Morgan knew, a pretty convenient way for the unlucky, or maybe the imprudent,
We're just the gullible.
to lose their shirts.
And that fluctuation can be absolutely wild. Case in point, the flash crash of May 1962.
Oh yeah, that's a story. Imagine this. The New York Stock Exchange floor, 3:30 p.m., Monday, May 28th, 1962. A cheer goes up.
But not because things were looking good.
Not at all. It was, as the book says, because it was over. The trading day was done. But the ticker, the machine printing the trades,
It was way behind.
an hour and 9 minutes late, still printing transactions until almost 6 p.m. Can you just picture the chaos? Trying to make decisions when the information is that delayed.
It's almost unimaginable today, with instant everything. And the damage, it was staggering.
Huge. Iconic stocks like AT&T dropped 11 points. IBM plummeted 37.5 points.
And the total paper loss,
A record $20.8 billion.
which, to put that in perspective for you listening, was nearly 4% of the entire national income back then.
Yeah, basically like losing 2 weeks' worth of everything the country produced and earned in one day.
And it wasn't just the U.S., was it?
No, the shockwaves hit Europe hard the next day.
So let's unpack the panic a bit. You mentioned over 91,000 margin calls went out that week.
91,700, yeah. And for you, if you're not deep in finance, a margin call happens when you've borrowed money from your broker to buy stocks.
Right, buying on margin.
Exactly. And if those stocks drop enough, their value might not cover the loan anymore. So the broker demands more money or collateral. That's the call.
If you can't pay up,
They sell your stock, which pushes prices down further, triggering more margin calls for other people.
and it becomes this downward spiral.
A bottomless pit of selling pressure, as the book calls it. We saw that in 1929, before federal rules put a sort of floor on things. In 62, about 1 in 4 stocks had fallen enough to trigger those calls.
It sounds completely unstoppable,
Yeah.
but it wasn't, was it? This is where the human element really comes in.
Right. Tuesday morning, veteran dealers called it the blackest 90 minutes they could remember.
Selling pressure was just immense, paralyzing almost.
Yeah, stocks couldn't even open, too many sellers, not enough buyers at, reasonable prices. But then the market turned dramatically.
So what sparked it? What caused that reversal?
Well, right at the center of it all was American Telephone and Telegraph AT&T and its floor specialist, a guy named George M.L. LeBranche Jr.
Okay.
LeBranche was often described like a fighter or maybe a cork bobbing on ocean waves. His job was to keep an orderly market in telephone stock.
And he had this ledger, right? The telephone book.
Exactly. A meticulous record of buy and sell orders. And the book really highlights how his actions, his judgment calls, managing those orders, injecting confidence, it was crucial in shifting the whole momentum.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In today's world of algorithms and high-frequency trading, does that kind of intuitive human judgment still have the same power?
It's a great question because by Tuesday's close, things had turned around incredibly. 7 million shares traded in just the last half hour alone.
Which was unheard of back then.
Completely. And almost 3/4 of Monday's massive losses were recouped, like $13.5 billion just reappeared.
Wow. And what about that holiday?
Ah, yes. The Memorial Day holiday came right after. It gave everyone a breather, a chance for the cooling of overheated emotions, as the book puts it.
It's almost funny, isn't it? A day off, potentially saving the market from total disaster.
It truly is. This whole story is just such a powerful lesson about market psychology, how fast things can shift based on hard data, sure, but also just collective feeling, sentiment.
Panic and confidence.
Exactly. And even just stepping back for a day, it reminds you that even with all our fancy systems, the market is still fundamentally about human behavior.
That's a really strong point. Human resilience, human psychology.
Yeah.
It makes you think if those same unpredictable elements show up elsewhere, like in, I don't know, launching revolutionary products.
Absolutely. Let's pivot then from the market drama to the often equally unpredictable world of innovation and marketing.
Okay, let's start with something that seems so basic now, but was once, well, unsettling.
Duplication.
Right, the mimeograph machine, introduced way back in 1887, and it didn't exactly fly off the shelves.
Why not? It seems so useful.
Well, people just didn't want to make lots of copies of office documents. Simple as that. It was a new and unsettling idea. We take instant copies for granted, but back then, clerks literally wrote out copies by hand.
Wow.
So the whole idea of machine duplication needed this enormous missionary effort just to convince companies it was worthwhile. Shows you how ingrained habits can be.
Okay, fast forward a bit. Thurography. Now that changed things. Oh, massively. Early copiers, remember, were messy. They smell bad, needed special paper.
Right.
Xerography meant dry writing. That was the revolution. And the impact. U.S. copies went from maybe 20 million in the mid-50s to, get this, 14 billion by 1966.
14 billion. That's insane. It completely changed how people thought about written communication, didn't it? Even for things like textbooks.
Totally. But getting there, it was a huge gamble, especially for the company, Heloid, a small photographic paper company.
They bet the farm on it, basically.
Pretty much. Between 47 and 60, they poured about $75 million into xerography research.
75 million.
Which was twice their regular earnings over that period. Executives like Joseph Wilson, Dr. John DeSauer, the Wizard, they literally mortgaged their homes, took pay in stock.
Wow. Even the University of Rochester got involved.
Yeah.
Nervously buying shares.
Yeah, at what worked out to 50 cents each, adjusted later, the commitment was absolute. But what a risk.
And the science behind it. It wasn't even fully understood.
Well, the breakthrough was this hunch. Lots of experts thought electrostatics wouldn't work in humid places. You'll never make copies in New Orleans, they said. But the key was adding selenium to the photoconductive surface. It just worked. And even now, they don't totally understand why it has no memory effects, meaning it keeps making good copies, theoretically, forever.
An empirical discovery. Sometimes you just find what works.
Exactly. But then, actually building the machine, the famous 914 copier, that was another ordeal.
Right, the engineer Horace Becker.
Yeah?
He faced some nightmares.
Oh, yeah. Early machines had mispuffs, paper jams, and sometimes they even caught fire.
Got fired.
Yep. And at the big London debut, Joseph Wilson himself tries to make the first copy.
Oh, no.
Not only did it fail, it blew out a giant generator in front of everyone.
You couldn't make this stuff up. And yet,
Britain became the biggest overseas user. A testament, as the book says, to Xerox resilience and British patience.
incredible persistence. And then the name itself became an issue, didn't it?
Yeah, to Xerox became a verb, which is great marketing in one way, but it threatened their trademark.
So Haley Xerox had to become just Xerox Corporation.
A high-class problem, as you said.
Definitely. Okay, so that's Xerox, an amazing success story against the odds. Now let's flip the coin. The Edsel.
Ah, the Edsel. A very different story. Ford's planners back then were predicting this American millennium by 1965.
Right, and they figured they needed a new car in that medium price range.
Exactly. But they knew the risks were huge. Think about it. Out of almost 3,000 American car makes introduced since cars began, only about 20 had survived.
Wow, those are long odds.
Very long. But Ford went for it. The designer, Roy Brown, wanted something unique and yet at the same time be familiar.
Which sounds like a contradiction waiting to happen.
A bit, yeah. It had that famous or infamous horse collar grille, unique rear wings, kind of horizontal, not like the big tail fins everyone else had.
Right, trying to be different.
And even push-button transmission controls on the steering wheel hub. Pretty futuristic for the time.
And internally, people loved it at first.
Oh, yeah, the internal unveiling got apocalyptic applause, which, might create a bit of an echo chamber, maybe, skew your perception.
Could be. And the sales effort was just as bold.
Totally. JC Larry Doyle, the sales manager, he went out and recruited 1,200 dealers. Aggressively.
How'd he do it?
Tactics like showing them locked cars first, building suspense, then these hour-long pitches. Many dealers apparently signed up barely even seeing the car clearly.
Just based on the Ford hype?
Pretty much. Doyle got compared to the Pied Piper, leading these experienced business guys along.
But then came the launch and the reality.
Oof, yeah. The
Yeah.
downfall was swift and brutal. Those very first Edsels, the ones going into the most glaring public limelight.
They were lemons.
Dramatically imperfect is the phrase used. Delivered with oil leaks, hoods sticking, trunks you couldn't open.
Push buttons that needed a hammer.
Literally. Couldn't be budged with a hammer. Some even burst into flame.
Oh my God. Talk about a quality control nightmare.
Right.
They were at the worst possible moment.
Couldn't be worse. And then external stuff piled on.
Sputnik.
Right. October 1957. The Soviets launched Sputnik. It shattered the myth of American technical preeminence.
And suddenly, flashy American cars didn't seem so appealing.
Exactly. There was this kind of public revulsion against Detroit's fancier baubles, and the blame for the Edsel quickly shifted to the design. Poor Roy Brown became the scapegoat.
Even though they had applauded him earlier?
Yep. The timing was just disastrous.
So the Edsel becomes this icon of, what? High hopes, less than complete fulfillment.
That's the quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commercially a total flop, but maybe it did capture the spirit of its time in a way. Clumsy, powerful, dowdy, gauche well-meaning.
And ironically, other car makers later copied some of its features.
Some did, yeah, like
Yeah.
the rear-end wing theme. Go figure.
So you put Xerox and Edsel side by side. Wild success, spectacular failure. What's the big takeaway for you about innovation in markets?
Well, it really hammers home that a brilliant idea isn't enough, right? You need execution, impeccable execution. You need timing, market timing, and maybe, yeah, a bit of luck.
Mm-hmm.
Xerox clicked because it solved a real need, even if people couldn't quite articulate it at first. The Edsel. It missed on quality, it missed on timing, it missed on reading the public mood.
So innovation isn't just making something new.
No, it's making something new at the right time with the right quality for the right customer. It's much harder than it looks.
That's a really sharp distinction.
Yeah.
Okay, from products and markets, let's shift again. Let's get into the weeds of power and information in finance. Specifically, the whole shady history of inside dope.
Ah, yes. The Wild West days.
Yeah.
For centuries, having private information was just how you made money in trading. It was a valuable commodity.
Like Nathan Rothschild using the early news from Waterloo.
Exactly. Or John Jacob Astor knowing about the Treaty of Ghent before others. These guys made fortunes and nobody really challenged it back then.
And Daniel Drew dropping poisoned crumbs, fake memos.
Yeah, deliberately misleading competitors. It sounds crazy now, but it wasn't until the 20th century that trading on inside info started being seen as, outrageous.
So Congress eventually stepped in, the Securities Exchange Act of 1934.
Right, and specifically Rule 10b-5. That required insiders to give back short-term profits and made it illegal to commit fraud or leave out a material fact.
Material fact, that's the key phrase, isn't it?
It is. But putting it into practice, really plowing new ground, took a major case.
The Texas Gulf Sulfur case, 1966.
That's the one. So geologists find promising signs up in Canada at a place called Kid 55. Company execs like VP Charles Fogarty start getting reports suggesting a huge ore deposit.
So potentially massive news for the company. How do they handle it publicly at first?
Not great from an honesty perspective. Despite the evidence piling up internally, Texas Gulf put out a press release on Sunday, April 12th,
Okay.
saying the drilling has not been conclusive and calling other reports exaggerated and unreliable.
So downplaying it.
Big time. The stock actually dipped a bit. Investors were kind of impressed by the company's caution, their mood of deprecation. They looked conservative.
But behind the scenes,
Insiders who knew better were buying stock and call options. VP Richard Clayton, Secretary Crawford, they were loading up.
knowing the real potential.
Exactly. Then, just a few days later, Thursday, April 16th, the company issues a second press release.
And this one.
Confirms a major discovery. More than 25 million tons of ore.
Wow. Talk about a change in tune. That must have set off alarm bells.
Immediately, the SEC jumped in with a civil complaint. They accused the execs of illegal insider trading and called out that first pessimistic press release.
What was the defense? How did they justify the early buying and the misleading statement?
They argued the first drill results only made it a sporting proposition, just maybe. Some buyers claimed they bought based on general principles, or one even said because of his well-to-do wife.
Uh-huh. Trying anything?
Pretty much, but the SEC wasn't buying it. They used this great analogy.
The horse racing one.
Yeah. They said it's like betting on a horse entered in a race, knowing that the animal has received an illegal stimulant.
Ouch. Pretty direct.
Very. The SEC argued that first core sample made a rich mine an overwhelming probability. That made it a material fact that should have been disclosed, or at least not downplayed, while insiders traded.
So the key legal fight became about timing, right? When exactly does inside information become public information?
Precisely. That was the crucial question. The SEC argued that even after the news hits the Dow Jones ticker tape or whatever, insiders still have to wait.
Wait for what?
A reasonable amount of time. Enough time for the regular investing public to absorb the news, evaluate it.
And reasonable would vary.
Yeah, vary from case to case, they said. No hard and fast rule.
So how did the court rule?
The circuit court sided with the SEC. It was seen as a famous victory. It basically signaled, for maybe the first time in the history of the world, that Wall Street couldn't just operate with a stacked deck anymore.
A huge precedent for fairness and transparency.
Absolutely fundamental.
Now, this idea of controlling information, it pops up elsewhere too, like with trade secrets. There was that B.F. Goodrich versus International Latex case, the one free bite idea.
Right, involving a spacesuit expert, a guy named Wolgemuth, who left Goodrich for latex. Goodrich sued to stop him from taking his knowledge of the processes with him.
What was the core tension there?
It got pretty dramatic in court. Wolgemuth's lawyers admitted he knew Goodrich's secrets, sure, but they argued he didn't take any physical documents and couldn't possibly remember everything complex.
It's about what's in your head versus what's on paper.
Exactly. And Wolgemuth himself had this really telling quote to a Goodrich executive: "Loyalty and ethics have their price, and International Latex has paid it."
Wow. That gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The tension between employee mobility and protecting company secrets.
It really does. The court ended up issuing a temporary injunction. He could work for latex, just not on spacesuits specifically.
Which must have worried other scientists, right? Like, are we married to our jobs?
Yeah, that was the question floating around. Wolgemuth himself seemed pretty wary of the legal system afterwards, mentioning the toils of the law. It shows how messy these things are.
So, looking at Texas Gulf and Goodrich together, how do you see the idea of fairness evolving? And what does it mean for us today in terms of transparency, corporate responsibility, even our own careers?
Well, I think they both highlight this ongoing balancing act. We want fairness in the market, like Texas Gulf pushed for no stacked decks. Information needs to be handled more equitably.
Right.
But then with Goodrich, you see the tension around innovation and individual knowledge. How do you protect a company's investment without totally locking down employees?
Yeah, it's tricky.
For us today, it means information isn't just power, it's something that comes with responsibilities. And in our careers, especially as things get more fluid, we constantly have to navigate that line between our own expertise and what belongs to our employer. It's a dance.
A constant dance. That's a good way to put it. Okay, building on that, let's look at how big institutions handle threats, how they react when things get really hairy.
Yeah, the balance between free markets and, well, necessary intervention.
We hear about market crashes all the time, but sometimes the real danger is a hidden failure, something that could cascade, like the Ira Hopton Co. scandal back in '63.
Right. A brokerage firm, Ira Hopt, suddenly finds itself broke. Why? Because they were holding worthless warehouse receipts connected to this huge vegetable oil futures fraud, the Salad Oil King scandal.
And then the timing. Unbelievable timing.
Just awful. Friday, November 22nd, 1963, as the Hopt partners are realizing their firm is doomed.
The news hits the NYSE floor. President Kennedy has been assassinated.
Yeah. Chaos erupts. In just 27 minutes, $13 billion vanishes from the market's value. They close the exchange early.
Which just made things worse for Hopt and their customers.
Absolutely. It threatened 20,000 customer accounts, just frozen. It was this perfect storm, a national tragedy layered onto a potential financial meltdown.
So what happened? How did they stop the dominoes from falling?
This is where institutional leadership steps up. G. Keith Funston, who was president of the NYSE then,
Okay.
he became convinced the exchange itself and its member firms had to intervene. They had to risk their own money to make the innocent hopped customers whole.
Was there any precedent for that? For the exchange bailing out a failed firm's customers?
Very little. There had been a tiny case in 1960, but nothing on this scale. It was basically unprecedented. Funston felt it was about protecting the integrity of the entire market system.
So what did they do?
That weekend, 11 Wall Street became this hub of frantic activity. Funston and the other exchange leaders were negotiating nonstop.
With who?
Major banks like Chase Manhattan, Morgan Guarantee, persuading them to hold off on collecting debts from Hopt. They sent Gustav Levy over to London.
To deal with the British banks.
Yeah, who had lent Hopt unsecured eurodollars, that's U.S. dollars held overseas, big international finance stuff. And Funston, he even went on TV and basically lied.
Lied?
Yeah.
About what?
He denied rumors that a major firm was failing, said there was no truth to it. He did it, he argued later, for the good of the country, to prevent mass panic.
Wow, that's quite a step. Did it work?
It did. Their collective action, the banks agreeing, the exchange backing the customers, it stopped a much bigger disaster. And it set this new standard for responsibility within the financial community.
So sometimes the institution has to step in, even risk its own neck, to save the system.
Exactly. It showed the limits of a purely free market in a crisis.
Okay, different kind of institutional fight now. The corner, like with Piggly Wiggly.
Ah, the game of the corner. Classic Wall Street stuff. Bulls want prices up, bears want them down.
And bears sell short, right? Borrow stock, sell it, hope to buy it back cheaper later.
Yep. But the big risk for a short seller is getting cornered. That's when someone, usually a bull, buys up almost all the available stock.
So the shorts can't buy it back to return it.
Exactly. And as the old saying goes, he who sells what isn't his own must buy it back or go to prison, or at least face huge losses.
So, Clarence Saunders, the founder of Piggly Wiggly Groceries, he tried this.
He did, in 1923. Tried to pull off what's called the last real corner in a major stock. He wanted to crush the short sellers who were betting against his company.
How close did he get?
He claimed he had control of almost all the 200,000 shares outstanding. He was ready to squeeze the shorts hard.
But the exchange stepped in again.
Yep. The NYSE governing committee basically kicked the pegs from under Saunders, as the book puts it.
How?
2 key moves. First, they permanently delisted Piggly Wiggly stock from the exchange.
Wow.
Second, they gave the short sellers more time to find shares and cover their positions. This let the shorts buy shares away from the main exchange in the over-the-counter market, likely at lower prices, completely bypassing Saunders' control.
So the institution changed the rules mid-game to stop manipulation.
Pretty much. Saunders' corner collapsed. He had to settle for way less than he hoped. It was a big moment showing the exchange actively policing the market, not just letting Adam Smith's invisible hand sort it out. The House fought back.
Fascinating. Okay, one more example of institutions acting, this time internationally, defending the British pound.
Right, and the central role of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, which, despite looking like a grim fortress...
The Florentine Palace description.
Yeah, it's actually the main operating arm of the U.S. central bank system, and it sits in this unique spot, astride the chalk line between government and business.
Staffed by the intellectuals of Wall Street banking.
Kind of, yeah. And for these central bankers everywhere, the absolute nightmare scenario is a major currency, like the British pound back then, collapsing, devaluation.
Why is that so scary for them?
History lessons, mainly. Britain going off the gold standard in 1931 is seen as a key event that deepened the Great Depression, so they desperately want to avoid repeats.
So the 1964 pound crisis hits.
Yeah, speculators are attacking the pound, Britain's reserves are draining at this insane rate, $1 million a minute, global alarm bells are ringing loud.
What was the defense mechanism?
Something called the swap network. It grew out of the Bretton Woods agreements after World War II.
Okay, what did it do?
It's basically a system of prearranged credit lines between central banks, led by the U.S. Fed. It gives them instant access to funds to intervene in the market and prop up their currency if it comes under attack.
And the guy behind it?
Charlie Coombs, at the New York Fed, seen as the genius behind the swap network, hugely respected by his international colleagues.
So did they use it?
Oh, yeah. In 1965, the central banks launched this coordinated counterattack, like military precision, the book says. They started placing huge buy orders for pounds simultaneously.
Drive the price up and scare off the speculator.
Exactly. Confuse them, make them cover their bets. It was this amazing display of global financial cooperation.
Did it save the pound long term?
Well, not indefinitely. Devaluation eventually happened later, but it showed the power of collective action and the human toll. Alfred Hayes, the head of the NY Fed, this unflappable foreign exchange wizard, he usually insisted on keeping bankers' hours. But by the time the next sterling crisis hit in '67, which made '64 look like child's play, even he was working around the clock. The pressure was immense.
So these stories, Haupt, Piggly Wiggly, Sterling, they really show institutions reacting to huge threats, right? Balancing free markets with intervention.
Definitely. Haupt shows the system protecting its own customers to maintain confidence. Piggly Wiggly shows regulators fighting manipulation. Sterling shows global cooperation to maintain stability.
It makes you wonder, what are the new games being played today in crypto, AI trading, whatever? What new institutional responses might be needed?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's always evolving.
Okay, final theme. Let's talk about the unseen forces. Communication, personal purpose, things that aren't always on the balance sheet but are hugely influential.
Right, like in the General Electric price-fixing scandal, that brought out this fascinating idea of degrees of communication.
What did that mean in practice?
Yes. It meant managers, like a guy named Jin, would get these official company directives, winkless orders, saying absolutely no price fixing, explicit policy.
Okay, sounds clear.
But then they'd get different signals from other superiors, maybe spoken, maybe implied, signals that were more articulate, persuasive, and forceful, suggesting the official policy was just naive, for show.
So they followed the unspoken rule, not the written one.
Often, yeah. Another exec, Stalick, talked about being guided by impacts. Not memos, but this visceral medium of communication that showed him the true drift of company policy, regardless of the official documents.
Wow. And even the chairman, Cordner.
Claimed he had no idea. Despite his huge salary, he had this way of responding to questions, saying, I was responsive to that, instead of actually answering. A very passive communication style.
It's amazing how culture and unspoken signals can just completely override policy.
Totally. And the system they used, the phase of the moon formula for deciding which company would submit the winning bid.
That sounds absurd.
It was. This complex, rotating schedule, it just shows the almost comical bureaucratic lengths they went to keep the conspiracy going, hidden beneath layers of plausible deniability.
It really drives home how official policy isn't always the real policy.
Not at all. Now, shifting from corporate communication to personal journeys, David Lilienthal's story is incredible.
Yeah, the guy who ran the TVA, the Atomic Energy Commission.
Yeah.
Huge public service figure.
Right. And then he leaves government. He's apparently filled with trepidation about how he'll even make a living. Friends gave him a beggar's tin cup and a guitar as joke gifts.
But he was also relieved, wasn't he?
Yeah, relief at getting his privacy back, being out from under constant congressional scrutiny.
So what did he do? How did he make out financially?
Pretty well, it turns out. He started consulting, then became an exec at Minerals and Chemicals Corporation. And thanks to stock options and favorable capital gains taxes back then.
The tax angle.
Right, allowed him to keep 3/4 of it. Instead of paying 80% or more in income taxes like he would have on regular salary, he became a millionaire. After years on a government paycheck.
And the company did well under him.
Exploded. Annual receipts went from $750,000 to over $274 million. Huge success financially.
Who was the bot, right?
There was. His private journal showed this nagging sense of dissatisfaction. He enjoyed being in the business arena, but it just didn't have the same gratifications of public service work.
Something was missing.
Yeah. His main work involved clay, which the book suggests might be symbolic of the, less inspiring aspects for him, that nagging sense. What do you think that was really about?
I think it's that deeper purpose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Making money wasn't quite enough for him.
Seems like it. So he came up with this brilliant solution, Development and Resources Corporation, DNR.
What was the idea?
Get backing from Lazard Frères, staff it largely with his old TVA buddies, and aim to help accomplish some rather specific things, and incidentally make a profit.
Trying to combine purpose and profit. Have his cake and eat it, too.
Exactly. And they took on these huge global development projects. In Iran, he saw terrible poverty but believed they could transform areas, make them famous, like Tupelo back home.
They worked elsewhere, too.
Italy, Colombia, even controversially planning post-war development in Vietnam. He brought his old combativeness, his father's motto, be your own man, to this new challenge.
Raising that big question.
Yeah. Is DNR a prototype of the free enterprise of the future, accountable half to its stockholders and half to the rest of humanity? A question we're still grappling with today.
Definitely. Okay, one last piece. Shareholder activism. The little guys trying to hold power accountable.
Right, because even with millions of stockholders, the real power in corporations tends to rest with directors and managers, often a self-perpetuating oligarchy.
Most stockholders are just indifferent or don't know how to exert power.
Pretty much. Indifference, ignorance, just sheer numbers make it hard. So the annual meeting becomes the main stage for any pushback.
The stockholder season. And companies would try to manage that stage, right?
Oh, yeah. Moving meetings out of New York in '66, supposedly for convenience, but likely also to deter the noisiest dissident stockholders, the regulars based there, trying to control the room.
And who are these dissidents? The gadflies.
Figures like Mrs. Sauce, her motto was, "I was born to raise hell."
Love it.
And Mr. John Gilbert, often dismissed as nuisances, but these were professional stockholders. They did their homework. They usually had a point.
And they weren't afraid to cause a scene.
Sometimes used costumes, provocative statements. They understood the theater of the annual meeting.
Did they ever get anywhere?
Sometimes. AT&T's chairman Capel got booed when he shut down the professionals. GE's chairman Philippe used this calculated calm Saxonism, but Mrs. Sauce still managed to wring a concession out of him on board representation, calling it a fine stroke of chairmanship.
So they could have an impact. And the debate over cumulative voting.
Yeah, that was about giving minority shareholders a better shot at electing at least one director, an ongoing fight for representation.
But sometimes the dynamic shifted.
Occasionally. At a Pfizer meeting, the chairman actually welcomed John Gilbert's questions, and the audience was split. Was he a pain or helpful? It suggested maybe, just maybe, the relationship could evolve towards more engagement.
Depends on the CEO's attitude, maybe.
Could be a big factor.
So, wrapping this all together, unspoken signals like at GE, personal values like Lilienthal's, even the theatricality of the annual meeting. How much does this stuff really influence serious business? And what does it take to be your own man or woman today?
I think these stories powerfully show that business is so much more than numbers. It's steeped in human behavior, personal values, hidden signals, even performance. Being effective, being your own person today. It requires understanding those layers.
It's not just about technical skill.
Not at all. It's about reading the degrees of communication, finding your own purpose like Lilienthal tried to, or figuring out how to make your voice heard even if you're not formally in charge, like the shareholder activists. That struggle for individual impact within big structures, it's timeless.
What a journey we've taken. From those frantic trading floors in '62
To the quiet back rooms defending currencies.
the huge bets on Xerox and Edsel,
The ethical tightropes of insider info and trade secrets.
and the very human dramas of communication and purpose.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
And the lessons seem clear, right? Markets fluctuate, always. Innovation's risky. Information is power, but the rules keep changing. Institutions adapt, sometimes dramatically.
And communication, intention, purpose, they operate in really subtle, powerful ways, often way more subtle than a memo.
It's just a fantastic collection of reminders that the human element is always, always in play.
Even when we try to pretend it's all about the data.
So, as you go about your week, maybe think about how these business adventures from decades ago still echo today. Where do you see the modern versions of the stacked deck or those unseen impacts playing out in your world, your field?
And in this age where we're just drowning in data, what does it really mean to pick out the material facts? And maybe more importantly, to give them and ourselves that reasonable amount of time to actually evaluate them before jumping to the next thing.
A final provocative thought indeed. Something to definitely chew on.